516. Sorry. 890, 881. Wait, I'm sorry, is that the beginning? 881? Is that me?
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. Okay, we ready? Councilor Benavides is on as well, right? I've got your hand up, so I'll wait for you.
I'm here, Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, very well. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. I think everybody is now logged on, so we are ready to go. The time is 6:03. Today is July 27th, 2021. I hereby call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as we will have an invocation from Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, Lord, we pray today that you guide us through our decision-making for the betterment of our city and for its people. And we thank you for the continuing water that you have provided for our community, Lord. And we ask you that we do our best to set aside anything we may have and do what's best for our fellow citizens, Lord. We also ask you, Lord, to watch over and guide and help our friend Urban Martinez's family as they have got to go through this horrific tragedy of his loss. We ask this in your name, O Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Ms. Serrano, could you please take roll and determine the quorum?
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
Present.
Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez,
Honored to be with you all.
Councillor Justin Salazar Torres,
Present.
Councillor John Ramon Vihil,
Present.
Councillor Manuel J. Martinez,
Here.
Councillor John L. Ritchie,
Present.
Councillor Denise D. Benavides,
Present.
Councillor Dorothy Didi Valdez,
Present.
Mayor Javier E. Sanchez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And for the record, we'd like to recognize Commissioner Tini Bustos, who has entered the building. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll go next to the approval of the agenda. There are a few items that I would like to ask to change. One of them is very simply to remove letter J under Roman numeral 11, approval of agreement with Clear Energy Solar NM LLC. I'd like to remove that as we're not prepared to bring that to full council yet. In addition, I'd like to move letter N under Roman numeral 11 to the first item under Roman numeral 11, items proposed for council consideration, discussion items, and action items. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Under discussion item numeral M, This is a discussion item that's later to come back before this governing body, correct, as an ordinance?
So what we will be doing here is having a discussion only, and quite frankly, limited discussion. We do have City Planner, Mr. Richard Hubler, to answer any questions that we may have. That was put before the Planning and Zoning Commission last month. However, that meeting went on for 6 hours and they were unable to reach any kind of agreement or even bring that to the full Planning and Zoning Commission. In addition, we only have till September 1st before we can really come up with any issues or answer any questions for cannabis related issues. So I beg your indulgence to at least listen and have a couple questions for our attorneys that we can bring back later on. The idea is to have a full co-meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission as well within the next couple of weeks.
I would just caution the governing body to limit their opinions concerning this at this juncture because it's only discussion. If somebody is predisposed to an issue and shows the predisposition in a public way where it's recorded, I think anybody wanting to move this in a certain direction can certainly use that against the vote. So I would be very careful not to discuss this in grave detail or show any bias in any way towards this during the meeting.
Well mentioned, Councilor. And like I said, it's going to be extremely limited and with the allowance really for any questions that need to be raised before we mention any opinions.
Sure. With that said, Mayor, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda with moving numeral M to N, N, the ReadyNet situation to be moved to be heard first, removal of item J, and caution with item M.
Second. Thank you very much, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, who has the motion on the floor with a second from Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. All of those in favor, unless there's any further discussion. Seeing none, all of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed. Very well, the agenda has been approved. We'll go next to our consent agenda. We have the July 13th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes, the June 29th, 2021 special City Council meeting minutes, and the June 22nd, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. Motion to approve, sir.
Second.
We have a motion of approval from Councilor Justin Salazar Torres with a second from Councilor Manny Martinez. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed? Very well, the meeting minutes for all of those three meetings have been accepted. We'll now go on to public comments. And first, we do have our Planning and Land Use Director, Mr. Richard Hubler, who would like to shed some light on perhaps some not so accurate information that we think has unfortunately brought some people here with the concerns that they do have. And after that, we'll proceed with Ms. Serrano to invite any other guests for public commentary. Mr. Hubler, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the governing body. So I'll bring this up a little bit more as we get to it, but since this item for the Cannabis Regulation Act is much further down the agenda, and I know there's been a lot of calls and questions related to some of the pieces of that. What was proposed to the Planning and Zoning Commission last month was a text amendment change. As was indicated before, we did not have that hearing, and so there's not been a recommendation, hence the joint session that we're discussing for the future. The language in our code currently does include some agricultural uses, including livestock. We started addressing this in 2019 when it became apparent that the city was not able really to enforce our current provisions around livestock. To my knowledge, they've not been enforced at all for the last 5 years, maybe as long as the last decade. They're currently based on zone districts as opposed to lot size. So right now, zones in the R1 and R2 are allowed to have livestock, cattle, et cetera, and other zones are not. R6 zoning, which is one of our most common zone districts in the city, including all the properties on Railroad, obviously has cattle on it. So again, we were not enforcing this because it doesn't make any sense. So that process to move forward a couple of years ago got delayed. It was tied up with the Asaki ordinance and maybe coming back at some point in the future. In order to make things a bit cleaner for this governing body moving forward, my recommendation was to strike all of our existing useless language and livestock out of the code. So that was the proposal that was presented last month. And that's why it struck through, so that we'll take out what's in there now that we're not enforcing. We'll deal with if we want to regulate livestock in the future based on lot size or densities or some other consideration. We'll bring that back through the regular process with appropriate input and have livestock ordinance that makes sense. In the meantime, we're just looking to take it off the books so that the regulation that we do pass that impacts that portion of the chapter that absolutely needs to happen related to cannabis has stuff that will work and doesn't cause us any legal issues because it's got unenforceable sections.
So just very briefly, I'd like to, I know that this is public commentary, but this is very relevant to future discussion. Just to make it clear that there was language that was struck from our current code that's proposed, and it took out any language about livestock. Correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not a desire to get rid of livestock, but to in fact get rid of any limitations of it.
Absolutely. In fact, the current language in the code as it exists right now prohibits livestock in most of the areas where it's taking place. So my proposal actually struck through all that language and removed it from the code. So we would basically get rid of any kind of regulations or limitations around livestock until we come back at a future date, put in something that works. So we're actually making livestock more possible than it currently is right now under a strict interpretation of the code.
So just as a recap, we are removing regulations on livestock to make it easier for people to actually have the livestock.
That's correct.
Okay, very well. Ms. Serrano, who do we have next?
Patrick Trujillo.
Is he online?
Yes, I'm not sure if you're able to see or hear me.
We can hear you.
We can hear you, sir. Go right ahead.
Hello, good evening, city council members. I just wanted to voice a concern. I did speak with Ms. Serrano at length as she attempted to describe to me the proposed changes as it pertains to cannabis. My concern is that I understand you're striking livestock from the current ordinances that exist. But my concern is as the new ordinance come into play to address cannabis, how are those, how is the wording going to affect us livestock owners in and around the Espanola city, as we feel that these ordinances continue to attack our way of life and actually the way of life for many of the individuals within and around Espanola. So just voicing my concern as to how future ordinances are going to then put limitations on us as livestock owners and lifelong residents of the Espanola Valley. And I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. And those are precisely the kinds of comments and pieces of input that we'd like to take into consideration. So thank you very much for bringing that to us.
Fire Chief Ron Padilla.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Pro Temp, members of the governing body, anytime that we have a city council meeting, I'll be putting myself on public comments and I will be addressing this issue every time. And this issue is staffing levels within the fire department. So we really need to start addressing those issues. We need to start addressing them coming up on mid-year review. And it is a priority for our department to start moving in that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Serrano.
Earl Wright.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Councilors. I'll keep this very brief, and I'm encouraged to hear that there will be a joint meeting proposed with Planning and Zoning and the governing body. I think there's critical policy decisions as we go forward with some of these ordinances that that personally, as a Planning and Zoning Commissioner for the city of Espanola, it would be extremely helpful to have policy direction from the governing body. So I look forward to that, and I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Ms. Serrano?
That concludes public comment, sir.
All right, very well. We'll next go on to our committee chair updates and councillor comments. Councillor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have a community services meeting this past week because of no quorum, but I do want to just kind of touch on this overview of the weekend's events that took place in Espanola. And thank, of course, Uribe County and Commissioner Tini Bustos for her work on a very successful fireworks extravaganza and festival that was on the plaza. It was very successful. Some estimates were close to 2,000 people at any point in time on the plaza. The bands that donated their time did a great job. I want to thank, of course, David Garcia, Jeremiah Martinez, Mr. Hartless, of course, David Maestas, the David Maestas Band, Gary Vigil, and of course, the Blue Ventures. They did an awesome job. And I think a lot of people were out to have a good time and they enjoyed the festivities. And I just want to thank, of course, the city of Espanola also for putting that out there. It's a lot of great fun there, sir. Also, I just wanted to see if maybe during the comments or during the matters from the city mayor, if he could give us an update on Safe Haven, where we're at on that when we're as far as for the initiative that we're going to do with the fire department, if we would be able to get an update on that and see where we're at, if we're ready to construct and that device that we've been looking at to get to help the newborns that might be needing, or new mothers, should I say, that might be needing that so that we can help save some lives. So that's it, sir.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor John Ritchie, and then we'll go to Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to acknowledge the Lowrider Museum Group. This weekend, they distributed almost 1,200 backpacks at the Century Bank. And I want to thank all those that were involved. A great community effort, taking care of our kids, getting them ready for school. Again, thank you to all the effort of all the folks that volunteered putting the backpacks together the weekend before and then out distributing. When I went over there this past Sunday, and I didn't see a lot from the road, but when you got behind Century Bank, it was crazy. There was a lot of people, and again, almost over 1,200 backpacks distributed. So great job to those that put it together. Ralph Martinez, Delvina and Eric Montoya, and Bobby Chacon were the key folks in organizing it and getting a lot of support from our community. So again, thank you for all the efforts in helping our kids. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you. So off of Councillor Ritchie's comments concerning the backpack drive, we certainly appreciate that. But the city of Espanola will be sponsoring their own backpack giveaway this weekend. And the relevance of that is that whole thing is tied to a federal grant that brings money into Espanola for different programs concerning youth and adolescents. So it's very important that we also support the initiatives that bring money back into our community in that way. So Ms. Justine Valencia from Project RACE, which is an entity of the HIDA federal grant, and for those that are listening and the public, HIDA is a high intensity drug trafficking area, which Espanola definitely is, unfortunately. And they provide some federal monies to this community to try and fight back drug addiction and those paths that some of our youth and some of our adolescents are experiencing either in their home or in their schools or in their environment. So this backpack giveaway is also sponsored by the city of Espanola and Project RACE and of course HIDA. The businesses in this community have been very, very giving, raising at least $8,000 to work on this initiative this weekend. The backpacks will be given away, 1,600 plus backpacks, filled with school supplies for our children will be given away on Saturday, July the 31st at the Convento. Again, that's this Saturday, the 31st at the Convento from 9 to 12. They did have a fill backpack event this last Saturday. Miss Justine Valencia was there with most of her family, and those are just incredible people. The Valencia family from here in town are incredible. They just did an incredible job. Within an hour and a half, they filled 1,600 plus backpacks full of supplies. So this is exciting for the community. There's also going to be a Touch a Truck event where we're going to try and have little children get a little exposure to our firemen and to our policemen so that there's not a stigma or a fear of them being around those kinds of people. So they're going to have that event also, and door prizes and a lot of other stuff going on. So it'll be a family friendly event. Again, that's the 31st of this month, Saturday from 9 to 12. On a Saturday issue, I have some big concerns about the trash piling up in our community. And I'd really like to hear from CM and from the Councilor John Ritchie, because he serves on that North Central board, and find out what the resolve is and how we move forward in this situation, because it's starting to show all over the place, and I'm just very concerned. I also would like the governing body to consider adopting an ordinance concerning the business trash bins, that we make sure that they're enclosed and they're not visible, because on the west side here at Dollar General, that thing is always open, and there's one of them where they have a bin where they're picking up trash, and then there's another one where they're just throwing it in there and collecting it, and that's just going all over the place. It's horrible. So we really need to look at tightening up those ordinances and make Española a cleaner place. My mom used to say all the time, it's one thing to be poor and it's another to be dirty. And Española needs to get cleaned up. It's really looking horrible. So we should do everything we can as a governing body to make that happen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ritchie, did you want to respond to that? And then we'll go to Councilor John Ramon Vijil.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Martinez. In regarding North Central Solid Waste, we've been having issues with our equipment. We have 7 trucks down in Albuquerque being repaired as we're speaking. We're constantly working on improving the fleet. We've got funding to purchase 1 new truck now. And I want to commend our staff. They are out there in trailers and trucks and picking it up on extra days. We understand the concern, and as it's been commented to me, if the toilet gets plugged or the trash don't get picked up, all hell's breaking loose. And so we understand the concerns, and we are working on it. We're working with with the county and the mechanics there at the shop, and trying to get our rigs back online. We have strategic plans for picking up. We are, if you have your can out and it doesn't get picked up, please leave it out, because we're coming through on different days to ensure that we get caught up. So again, thank you for your concerns and comments, and also ask for your patience as we get through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor John Ramon Vijil.
Thank you. I have a couple comments, a couple concerns actually. With the decreasing, we're starting to go into the cooler temperatures. Wanted to see if we could do an internal audit with streets department, going out and looking at all streets in the city that have been cut from pavement for connections, water leaks and such, and making sure that we're getting them paved and fixed in the coming months before the winter comes, because I know we can't lay hot mix in the winter. I think it's really important that we get our roads in shape. I understand budget constraints, but we need to prioritize, and it's a continual issue. I know here in Apple Valley, there's quite a few roads that haven't been fixed where they've had water leaks in quite some time, Mr. Martinez. So I'd like us to see a look at doing that. Going a little bit further on North Central, Counselor Ritchie, I would recommend that we facilitate a joint session meeting maybe with the county and members of North Central Solid Waste Board. We continually have issues with North Central, and this is a growing problem with the lack of maintenance, and obviously the fleet is a continuing issue. And so we have a situation, we need to handle it. And I think that North Central has continually had issues, and we need to facilitate some sort of discussion because it seems like it's not getting better at the authority. So I would really like to recommend maybe Commissioner Bustos with the new manager at the county, Ms. Lucille Sanchez, we can facilitate that.
Counselor Ramon, thank you for your suggestions. We've already been in discussion. In fact, I've been in communication with county manager today of some ideas that we have. There's a lot of issues in the way we provided service, and it put a strain on our equipment when we're doing door to door out in county locations. And we closed a lot of our transfer stations. And so we're going to be looking at bringing those back, what the possibility is of bringing those back, because that puts a lot of strain on the equipment, especially out in the rural areas. Here in the city, we're fortunate. Most of our roads are in most decent conditions. But again, it's easier to pick up within a city compared out into a rural area, especially the size of Rio Arriba. So we are working on that. And again, thank you for your input.
For a follow-up, Councilor John Ramon Vijel.
Trash is everyone's concern, whether it's rural community or city limits. Because what happens when we can't handle the trash, then we're going to get into an illegal dumping situation. And I'm very concerned about that. And that's not just in city limits. I'm just very concerned in general. We've had issues in Ranchitos where people have thought there's dumps there. Obviously, arroyos for historically have been at illegal dumping grounds. We really need to sit down and facilitate some sort of discussion, because the lack of maintenance and the continual issues with the fleet, it continues every few months. And so obviously there's a problem there, Councilor Ritchie, that we need to address.
We understand, Councilor Ramon, and we are working on it. So, and the county is involved. There's actually 2 members on North Central. So thank you again.
Councilor Justin Salazar Torres.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is a question for CM, City Manager, and you can address this during your update. But if you can give us an update when the North McCurdy, I guess the continuation of the resurfacing will begin, or what the update is on that, that'd be great. Thank you.
For a final comment from Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to congratulate John Ramon Vijel and his victory for Hannah's Board. Thank you again.
Councilor Didi Valdez.
Yes, I just want to make a comment. I was unable to attend the fireworks extravaganza, but I was out of the state, but I heard a lot of positive comments, and all the vendors that were there were amazing. I commented today on a pair of earrings a woman was wearing, and she told me, oh, I got it at she called it the fiesta, but not fiesta, the non-fiesta. So positive remarks, and I hope it continues. This was the first annual, and I hope we have many more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, very well. We'll now go on to matters from the mayor. We have an appointment. I'm sorry, Councilor Denise Benavides in virtual land. My apologies.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick things. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Rio Arriba County Sheriffs. They were acknowledged and recognized at the last Board of County Commissioners meeting. They happened to retire a K-9, and they did give a shout out to Rio Arriba County Sheriff's Office. Apparently the K-9 was trained by Rio Arriba County and sent to Santa Fe County. So kudos to them. They did retire that K-9. So I just want to mention that. And with the trash, I'll tell you, last week, today our trash did not get picked up, but last week we were out there and kind of asked the guys if there was anything that we could do to assist in any way. And I'll tell you that they were on their feet. They were doing what they could do. And, they said if you could separate certain things in the trash, that is really helpful to them, because when they get it wherever it's going, they have to separate it themselves, apparently. And, I think it's an issue as well. I did get asked by several of my neighbors today if I knew why it didn't get picked up. But I think it is a concern, and I know that it's being worked on. But I do think a meeting would be a good idea, and anything else that we could do to assist them that might be helpful to them doing, their jobs until they get, some of those trucks fixed would be helpful to us too. So, Councilor Richie, if there's any other suggestions, I know that when I asked the question, that was one of the things that the gentlemen that were on their feet, they did have a truck, they were throwing, trash in the back. And, I felt for them because it's difficult for them as well. And, it's tiring for them running up and down the street. But anything that we could do to help, I think would be a good idea.
Thank you, Counselor. My apologies for not seeing you out there. All right, very well. Do we have any other councilor comments? City manager will address a few of the issues when we get to that point. Next, we're on to matters from the mayor, and we have before us an appointment of city clerk. We have Miss Angelica Serrano, who has been with us for about 100 years, it seems like. And I say that with a lot of warmth in my heart, because I truly feel like not only does she have the aptitude to do the job quite well, but she is also intricately woven into all of the departments here at the city of Espanola. I've known Angelica for many years now, and one of the things that has stood out has been her ability to work well under stress. And I think that she is more than capable of recognizing the stress that confronts her, but more importantly, dealing with it with grace, and of course, be dealing professionally, not only with the public, but also with all of the councilors that are here. The main job of the city clerk, of course, is to keep track of all city documents, which she's doing quite well. But it's more than just recognizing what comes through the city council. It's also making sure that all records are kept from every single department, and recognizing how important it is to weave those relationships with each other has been an intricate part of her success here. We are looking forward to the rest of what we are hoping will be a wonderful term and beyond, with Ms. Angelica Serrano serving as city clerk.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve to ratify your appointment of Angelica Serrano as our city clerk.
Second.
Very well. We have a motion of approval from Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar with a second from Councilor Manny Martinez. Any discussion? Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to just thank Angelica for her professionalism. This governing body at times has been very divided, and it's sometimes difficult to navigate in this room, and it's difficult to navigate in City Hall, and sometimes even on the telephone. But, whenever I've had an opportunity to deal with Angelica, Ms. Serrano, she's always treated everybody fairly, with dignity and respect. And I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor. Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would just like to state I'm very proud of your appointment for Angelica as our city clerk. Ever since I've worked with Angelica here at the city, I feel Angelica is very thorough. She follow-ups with everybody and everything, which is great, which is awesome. Very well organized. I think over the time I've been here, I think amongst one of the most organized employees for the city that I've ever seen, and that's another huge plus, and I'm very appreciative of that. I also think that Angelica has proven herself over and over and over again, so I'm very proud to support this. Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations, Angelica, as long as the governing body approves it.
Thank you very much, folks. Any other further comment or question? Very well, seeing none, I'm sorry, Denise Benavides, is that you back there?
Yes, Mayor, thank you so much. I just want to say the same thing about Angelica. She is just so professional, and anytime that I email her for anything, 2 seconds later, I have it. Sometimes she may have already sent it to me, but she'll just send it again. She's excellent. I don't know what took you so long, Mayor, but congratulations, Angelica. You totally deserve it. She's such a team player as well. I've seen her working together with the group there at the city that gathers quite often to listen to matters that need addressing. She's part of that team. So congratulations to you, Angelica. I totally appreciate you.
Very well. Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to continue with the kudos because I think Angelica's done a great job. When she started as the liaison, it just continued, and she's just continued to flourish at that position and continues to do it here with not just professionalism, but if you email her, call her, if she'll respond right away, or she'll let you know whatever you need to know with the proper time. And I really appreciate that. And I just want to say congratulations to her. I don't see why we're not going to put this appointment. So I'll be a little more positive than this.
Very well. Thank you. Councilor Didi Valdez.
Yes, I also appreciate Ms. Serrano. When I came on, knew she was so friendly and kind. And I would think I'd bug her sometimes requesting things, and she always, with the smile, would deliver whatever I needed. And I really appreciate that. Not only is she professional, but she's also a kind soul. Thank you, Angelica.
Yes.
I'm sure she has family here. I hope they're very proud of you because they should be. I just want to tell you that.
Very well. Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Councilor.
John.
Go ahead, Councilor Ritchie, go ahead.
Chime in with everyone else on the kudos for Angelica, but she's a professional cat herder dealing
Yeah,
with
she
us. So thank you for all that you do for us and support us. And this is a well-deserved promotion. Thank you.
Very well. Tyler, if you would do us the honor of doing a roll call vote for the appointment of city clerk for Ms. Angelica Serrano.
Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez,
Absolutely in favor.
Councillor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Councillor Justin Salazar Torres,
Absolutely in favor.
Councillor John Ramon Vihil,
In favor, of course.
Councillor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor.
Councillor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Councillor Dorothy D. Valdez,
Definitely in favor.
and Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
Yes, absolutely.
Motion carries.
Wonderful. Thank you very much and congratulations. Ms. Serrano. I know that was nerve-wracking, even though it was going to happen either way. Everybody was very excited about it. So we'll now have the swearing in. Thank you very much, Mr. Martinez. His Honor is here joining us in chambers to do the swearing in.
Council member, ladies and gentlemen. Ms. Serrano, repeat after me. I, Angelica M. Serrano,
I, Angelica M. Serrano,
having been appointed to the office of municipal clerk
having been appointed to the office of municipal clerk
of Espanola,
of Espanola,
State of New Mexico,
State of New Mexico,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution
to
of
uphold the Constitution of
the United States of America,
the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the State of New Mexico,
the Constitution and laws of the State of New Mexico,
and the ordinances of the city of Espanola,
and the ordinances of the city of Espanola,
and I will, to the maximum of my capacity,
and I will, to the maximum of my capacity,
defend, support, and pledge my loyalty
defend, support, and pledge my loyalty
to the citizens of Espanola,
to the citizens of Espanola,
and faithfully and impartially
and faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Signing your life away. Just joking. Speak.
Judge, again, thank you so much.
Approach,
Yes, of course.
Official.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, a minute or two if you'd like to say something.
Just thank all of you for your support, understanding, and not only do you guys have questions for me, I always have a ton for you, and you've been very, very gracious in answering. It's a learning experience every single day, and I continue or plan to continue to move forward in what I'm learning and everything that I can learn. So thank you all for your support.
Thank you so much. We'll next go on to matters from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. First and foremost, I want to congratulate Madam City Clerk, Ms. Angelica Serrano, for her appointment. Thank you, Ms. Angelica. It's been a pleasure working with you and hopefully continuing moving forward for the city. At this point, I'd like to take the time if the governing body can indulge me with giving some updates in regard to some city matters. First and foremost, I want to give an update on the ordinance number 2021-01. That's the ordinance authorizing the operation of recreational off-highway vehicles and all-terrain vehicles on paved streets owned and controlled by the city of Espanola. An update, we received it and got it back from legal with all amendments that the governing body requested in changes. So to proceed, it's ready to be codified and also to push forward for the next public safety committee meeting that is required to proceed with the application for the State Transportation Commission in order for the application to ask permission for some state use, so use of some state highways. So that'll be on our next agenda for a public safety committee, Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. I'd like to announce that we officially got the memorandum of understanding fully executed with the State Armory Board for the use of a portion of that facility starting effective today. So we're going to use that to house some of our fire equipment, some vehicles to make sure we're in compliance, to make sure they're under shelter, and another third of that facility in regards to the Big Bay area. So that was officially signed by and submitted back to the city as of today. I want to announce that the city will be hosting a big city cleanup on August 21st. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, I do agree on how you were saying it's, that we need to clean up the city. So we're working on that. Again, I'd like to also give an update on our State Road 76. So as of yesterday, we've got the authorization to proceed with the sewer main project, the State Road 76, by the Department of transportation. So the next step is have a pre-construction meeting within the next 5 days to proceed. So hopefully we'll break ground here pretty soon, Councilor Manny Martinez. On that, I will proceed on answering a few questions or concerns that were brought up to me during councilor comments. The safe haven, I will direct to our city attorney, Mr. Jonas Nahum, in regards to the baby box update. Mr. Nahum, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. I'm going to provide a little update on what we're calling the baby box agreement with the vendor. We have reviewed the agreement. It's ready to go back to the vendor. We do have a lot of questions, and we are looking for some standard operating procedures from the vendor to better understand how it's really going to work. And we're looking to see, of course, whether, the city could be exposed to some liability. That's a major concern for legal. And we're also looking for other national models to see how this has gone for other municipalities who have decided what issues they may have run into, because we're going to want to incorporate any sort of disclaimer language or some protections for the city in that agreement we eventually reach with the vendor. So I'd say, we're getting there. Right now, we're waiting for a response, from the vendor on some of our questions and concerns on the red line.
Question.
Yes, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
For the attorney, thank you, Mr. Nahum. Can you give us a timeline of what we're looking at here?
I think it depends on the vendor's response. I know that, Nancy Long in our office is the attorney that's been working on this. She told me that she has a lot of questions. So, perhaps I could let you know after I speak with her about how complex those questions may be. But at this point, we're sort of coordinating with the vendor and getting those things worked on.
Councilor Justin Salazar Torres, go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. And regarding this, Mr. City Attorney, I believe it was during our Public Safety Committee meeting when this was brought before us, and we raised a lot of these questions actually. And the vendor, I forget her name, but she was part of the conversation, so she did answer a lot of these questions. I guess I would suggest that if possible to pull the recording or the minutes from that Public Safety Committee meeting, and you may get some answers there.
Great, thank you, Councilor
Absolutely.
Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Nahum. And just to add to that with our city attorney, so the main thing that we need to take into consideration that we are being considered as a pilot program within the state of New Mexico. So it serves right that we ask all the right questions, I guess, moving forward. We did make contact with another city that was in our same situation out in Florida. I did make contact with that municipality. They did forward us, that's where we got the model to proceed on some of the documentation that we had, but also, as Mr. Nahum said, it did arise a few more questions that still need to be addressed. So.
Sure, and follow up. One of the main questions that was asked during Public Safety Committee meeting would be, what is a city's liability? So that question was brought up during that committee meeting, and I believe it was answered in full extent. So I just would recommend, again, going to review those minutes or the recording itself.
Absolutely, Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. Thank you for those, City Attorney, Mr. Nahum. I want to chime in and add a little bit more to Councilor Ritchie's comments in regards to North Central Solid Waste. One thing that North Central Solid Waste did say that if anybody has the ability to take their trash to the Alcalde Land transfer station, they will accept it at no charge during these delays that they're experiencing on picking up the refuge. I myself have been receiving calls and emails, and we're addressing them as they come. So we've opened up a very good line of communication with management, with North Central Solid Waste, to give us a regular updates, and we are posting it on our Facebook and webpage, so that way the residents can be up to date in regards to when their streets are going to be picked up during these delays. The next one, in regards to Councilor John Ramon Vigil's comment in regard to patchwork throughout the city streets, and that's very good concern. Thank you, Councilor John Ramon Vigil. I just want to add that on all this is that we've received our APR funding actually into our account this past Friday. So that allowed us to go ahead and, as we mentioned in the last meeting where we approved the final budget, to go ahead and unfreeze key positions that would include an additional streets person for this. So that goes hand in hand. They're working together on getting the hot mix. It's a coordinated effort between the city and the transit mix to make sure that they're readily and available. So they're working on that. They will be addressing potholes. I know that they've been addressing a major one on Corlett Road as well. So just to give an update on that. Councilor Justin Salazar Torres, in regards an update to North McCurdy Road on the repaving on that. So we, as all of you are aware, we did get approved for the MAP funding through NMDOT. So we're just waiting for final approval, budget approval to go ahead and proceed on that. So we're looking, I'm guessing in the month of August that we'll get and kind of get the ball rolling on that. I just want to update that there's a lot of projects going on right now. So tomorrow we will be closing on the RFP for selecting a contractor to renew or to update Ranchitos Park as well. And like I say, State Road 76 is going to start here pretty soon. So I stand for any questions.
Councilor John Ramon Vijay.
I need to announce that I will be leaving the meeting at this time. I have a prior engagement and thank you.
Councilor Justin Salazar Torres.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. And this may be a question for City Manager as well as Director Hubler. I've had some concerned constituents from Camino Miramontes just asking for if there's any sort of agreement with the bank that's being built there, et cetera, because the road is being totally destroyed as they pursue construction. And then, you know, it's kind of patched up somewhat, et cetera. So what is the end game with that construction? Because as they're bringing in bulldozers, et cetera, it's tearing up that road pretty badly.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. So are you specifically asking with the Del Norte Credit Union construction site?
Yes.
Area. I have not got any word in regards to the status of that, but we can look into that and get back to you on that in regards to what their means to repair any damage or anything that they do to that street.
Thank you.
During that construction.
Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you. I too just want to follow up on Calle Miramontes. Also, I've received concern about the entrance and the egress being torn up by the construction. But I also am curious as to where we're at on the design phase of the drain in the back, so we can continue with the possibility of getting that street fixed and paved.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. Absolutely, that's a good question. It's an ongoing question in regards to the redesign of Camino Miramontes. So right now, it's in the hands of our engineer on contract, Sutter Miller and Associates, to trying to find a way in regards to solving the drainage issue. As of right now, the main thing that we encountered is that Okewinga is not allowing for any drainage from that street onto their property to the Rio Grande. So that's the main issue we're looking at right now, as to where to divert all the drainage water, that we maintain control of it when it happens.
All right. Yes, Councilor, go ahead.
Could we have a little discussion on the lighting and where we're at with that project?
For a brief response there, City Manager, you had some information on lighting that you could share with us.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. So as of right now, I believe that along Riverside from Walgreens north, the majority of those lights in the business district up, I believe, up to Big Five have been replaced with LED lighting. I know that they're going to be working on Industrial Park. They've addressed both north and southbound lanes on upper southern part of Española between upper and lower San Pedro. And right now we're waiting to get a quote in regards to getting the Oñate Bridge lights fixed as well. So I will get more updates as I receive them. I know that Bixby Electric it seems like they're running a bit slow, but it's in regards to their supplier getting them the supplies that they need to continue this job. So, but I will give an update and we're moving forward on that.
Could
All
I
right, very
also
well.
get an update on the Prince Ranch? Is there any plan for that? Have we moved forward at all in that direction? That
Council-
lighting is all what I'm asking about.
I'm sorry, can I get a little bit more specific on that in regards to Prince Ranch?
I know that Councilor John Ramon from the Hemis side and was talking about the city and Hemis working together on lighting up Prince Road.
Oh, yes, I'm aware of this. Honorable Mayor, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. So these majority of these talks in regards to getting lighting on North Prince were primarily discussed with the prior administration with Hemis Co-op. Right now that we have the new administration, the main focus right now is getting the franchise agreement settled and getting the ownership of all lights throughout the city to make sure that which ones belong to the city and which ones belong to Hemis. So right now, those are the main priorities that Hemis and the city are working on right now. Also with the funding on this, we'll look into see what reserves we have to continue if that project allows.
Thank you, sir.
All right, very well. Thank you very much, City Manager. Thank you very much, councilors, for the questions. We'll now move on to public hearings. We have before us ordinance number 2021-03, an ordinance authorizing the city of Espanola, the borrower, to amend ordinance 2017-12 for the purpose of increasing the funding amount of the New Mexico Environment Department NED Clean Water State Revolving Fund, CWSRF, loan number CWSRF 076. We will have before us a presentation from Grants and Utilities Manager Diane Hawkes. And for review and to remind everyone, this was heard a few meetings ago, but due to the fact that we had lost a quorum, we needed to redo that hearing yet again. So our apologies for that, and we will now hear from Ms. Diane Hawkes.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. I'm here this evening requesting approval of amended ordinance 2021-03. This amended ordinance would give us the authority to increase the funding from NMED, for the State Road 76 project. It's time for any questions.
Before we do questions, why don't we enter the hearing? Anybody speaking for or against has a chance to speak, and then we'll answer any questions after that. Okay, so the time is now 6:59 PM. I hereby open this public hearing. Should anybody either in public here before us or in the digital world wish to speak, either in favor or against, now is a perfect opportunity to do so. Madam Clerk, if you could make sure that I see or hear anybody that is on Zoom. We'll give anybody ample opportunity to speak at this time. All right, seeing no conversations either here in City Hall or online, I will now close the hearing. It is 7:00 PM.
Motion to approve, sir?
Second.
We have a motion for approval from Councilor Manny Martinez with a second from Councilor Justin Salazar Torres for discussion, comments, or questions. Councilor Manny Martinez?
Just want to say thank you.
Of course.
Very well. Seeing no further commentary or discussion, can we please take a roll call vote?
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D.D. Valdez,
In favor.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
In favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll now go on to our second public hearing for today. It is ordinance 2021-05, an ordinance consenting to a request by Candace Ashley Bustos and David Joseph Bustos for the petition for annexation of 2.00 acres of land adjacent to the municipal limits located on Ross Bustos Lane. We have a presentation by Mr. Richard Hubler and City Manager Javier Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. So I will yield to Mr. Hubler as he is the subject matter expert in regards to this specific ordinance.
Thank you, City Manager, Mr. Mayor, members of the governing body. Annexation to the city limits happens by a couple different methods. They're spelled out in state statute. The one that is most common, and certainly the one that the city of Espanola has tended to employ, is that of a petition by the landowners. It requires a petition that 50% or more of the property owners of the properties to be annexed consent. In this case, we're annexing 2 legal tracts, each one an acre in size, owned by Candace and David Bustos. And they actually are both signatories to the petition. So certainly they do consent. The petition is in the packet there following the ordinance. The other requirement is that the petition include a map that identifies the properties in the city boundaries. That's also been provided. These are directly adjacent to city limits. As it stands, there is current water and city infrastructure available to the first of the properties, so certainly nearby. This annexation is not development. This is just to bring the properties into the city limits. Any development moving forward will go through the regular process for development. So the requirement of the city is that there has to be utilities available in a reasonable timeframe, and the staff believes that that's the case. We did present this to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their July meeting, not because it's required, although they did recommend annexation, but actually because we wanted to do the annexation and the zoning at the same time. And our code does specify that they recommend a zone district. The properties in this area are currently zoned R6. We're recommending the same for this. So the ordinance that's before you approves the petition of annexation and the recommendation of the R6 zoning. And I stand for any questions when we get to that point.
All right, thank you very much. We'll open the hearing, and then after which time, should anybody wish to speak or ask questions, we can do so at that moment.
And we do have the property owners present as well.
All right, very well. So the time is now 7:03. I hereby open up public hearing. If there are any parties that wish to speak in favor of this, please come up now and mention your name for the record. If there's anyone out there who would also like to speak against it, now is also the appropriate time. We can just make sure that if there are any hands raised out in public that I see them. Again, should anybody wish to speak in favor of the ordinance adoption, please come up and speak now. Or if anybody would like to speak against it. All right, well, seeing no public commentary, the time is now 7:04 p.m. Hereby closing the public hearing.
Motion to approve, sir. Second.
We have a motion of approval from Councillor Justin Salazar Torres with a second from Councillor Manny Martinez. For question or discussion, Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that this type of situation should try and be pushed by the city of Espanola. We have that area out in Ranchitos that is a sort of checkerboard situation where some parts of it are in and some parts of it are out. It makes it really difficult for us to enforce ordinances and stuff, especially with P&Z. Because one of your neighbors might be in and you might be out, and the rules are totally different for both entities. I feel like tying that whole corner in would make our sewer line stronger because it would loop back. So I feel like it's very important for the city of Espanola to consider annexing that whole area up into the El Llano and to the Native American property line up in that corner. I think it would behoove us to consider that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Manny Martinez.
I have to agree with Councillor Martinez. There are certain areas of the city, Tesuque Lane is one of them. It goes up to a certain point and then it's no longer city, it's just county on that same street. So I think these are areas that we need to look at where we can annex the whole area into the city. Also into El Llano is another area that as well has that checkerboard effect where some are in and some are not. So I think these are areas we need to look at, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Justin Salazar Torres.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Piggyback off here, Councillor Manny Martinez and Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez. I agree, the El Llano area. Let this be the example, I guess, to bring everything into par and get us up to get all these this checkerboard in order. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right. Seeing no further commentary, Madam City Clerk, can we take a roll call vote? We have a motion for approval of the ordinance from Councillor Justin Salazar Torres with a second from Councillor Manny Martinez.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
For the motion.
Counselor Dorothy D.D. Valdez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Also in favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Now we have before us letter H on the agenda, City of Espanola, New Mexico, Resolution number 2019-01, a resolution requiring the prompt removal of ruined, damaged, and dilapidated structures, materials, debris, and abandoned vehicles to abate a menace to the public comfort, health, safety, and welfare at the following locations: 506 East Chamisa Street, apartments 1 through 4, 1015 West Bond Street, 1008 Cayuga Hill, 101 North Riverside Drive, in the city of Espanola, Santa Fe and or Rio Arriba Counties, New Mexico, the properties, requiring the owner or owners of the properties to promptly commence and complete the removal from the properties of all ruined, damaged, and dilapidated structures, materials, debris, and abandoned vehicles, including but not limited to structures, abandoned motor vehicles, manufactured or mobile residential commercial structures, travel trailers, weeds, dead tree limbs, rubbish, and other debris, provided that an owner, occupant, or agent in charge of any individual property may file written objections to this resolution, seeking a hearing before the governing body of the city of Espanola, authorizing the administration of the city of Espanola to cause removal of the ruined, damaged, and dilapidated structures, materials, debris, and abandoned vehicles if owners of an individual property do not timely undertake such removal, and providing that the governing body of the city of Espanola, the city council, authorizes the city administrator to take actions it deems necessary or convenient to lien the individual properties, pursue foreclosure of the property by any available legal remedy so as to recover its costs and expenses incurred in cleaning the property. Mr. Richard Hubler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the governing body. On the screen, you will notice the 506 East Chamisa apartments behind the Rio Grande Sun. As they were last week, the contractor for the demolition finally made it out to start working on those. If we can scroll down to the next one. Last week, they were peeling off the brick. And then last Friday, next one, they started with a skid steer actually demolishing the structure. And then the last two photos are as the site looked today. So it has finally been leveled and is in the process of getting cleaned up. The building is no more. So yay to that one. There's still a little bit of work to go, of course, a couple of weeks or maybe less for them to sort and haul the debris out. But that one will soon be able to be removed from this resolution, and we'll have the lien filed with the county. 3 other properties remain on the resolution. 101 Riverside. There's been no change since the last time we spoke about that one. The property owners are interested in demolishing it. We've not been able to obtain any kind of a structural evaluation. I was hopeful that we could get the inspector from CID to go in there and take a look. He was not excited about doing that and kind of giving his opinion on its structural standing. As I said, the property owners are interested in demolishing it, but demolition of a commercial building like that requires a contractor to do so. It's definitely a large structure. It's adobe, unfortunately. And it's my understanding, I haven't been in it recently, but it's my understanding it's not in the greatest of shape. They want it to come down, but it's an expensive thing to do. So that one remains on the list. The other 2 properties that we left on the list last time, we left in order for the kind of enforcement capacity. 1015 West Bond Street has had both the initial demolition and lien. And then more recently, there was a secondary, much smaller cleanup in the neighborhood of $700 or so that was also leaned or is in the process of being leaned for Mr. Lujan's, reappearance at the property with a little camper trailer and having to clean that up. I know that was one of the concerns of some of the members on this commission or on this council last time, and the reason we left it on there. We did also explore, Police Chief Roger Jimenez and I and our attorney explored kind of a couple of different related concepts, including anti-camping ordinances and similar. As you might be able to imagine, those run into all kinds of legal challenges relatively quickly. They overlap in a lot of cases with some of our homeless situations. They also overlap with free speech issues, with the responsibility of the government as far as providing space for people when we kick them off land. So as of yet, we've not gotten an ordinance, otherwise this body would have seen it. I still believe, as I posited last time, that there's nothing more that the city can do to those properties that we can't do through other means. We can always clean up a nuisance and lien that property. That doesn't require the clean and lien. So it's my recommendation again that we take those off, but it certainly is a governing body's determination. At this point, because we were not yet able to finalize everything on the 506 East Chamisa Apartments before tonight, I would recommend continuing this probably for another month. And then that way we can come back around and at that point, see where we stand with this property and hopefully close out that resolution entirely. It worked very effectively to deal with the Calle Olivas as a single resolution with a single property. We were able to address it. He came into compliance. We repealed the resolution. That was nice, clean, from a legal perspective and from a procedural perspective. And that's going to continue to be my recommendation moving forward, is that as we get properties that we need to address, that we do them on a one-by-one basis in that manner. That concludes my presentation.
All right, very well. We'll move on to the public hearing part, and then we'll listen to anybody speaking for or against. So the time is now 7:13. I hereby open the public hearing. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak for the resolution or against it? Looking to check to see if anybody out there in Zoom has their hand up. Anybody in chambers that would like to speak? Anybody else? All right, well, seeing none, the time is now 7:14. I hereby close the public hearing. All right, very well. Do we have any comments or questions? Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have to congratulate past councils for bringing this clean and lean and the staff and the current council for supporting it. I really feel like it continues to work to clean up our community. At times it's been a little frustrating because it's been a little slow. We've had to cross some hurdles at times that have been very uncomfortable. But I drove by this area this week and I can't even begin to explain the difference in the dynamic of the whole environment down there. This building gone, open up that space and redefine the whole area. And it's beautiful back there now. It's amazing. Like you can actually cut the view straight back to the river and see the trees. And it's just amazing what this has done for that area. And I'm hopeful that we will continue the 101 Riverside Drive. You mentioned, Mr. Hubler, that NMCID was not interested in doing that inspection. My question for you, sir, is can the city invest in that, and what kind of cost would we be looking at to do that? And what's the process for that?
That's an excellent question. And it's one that I've been kind of thinking about. A full-on structural analysis by an engineer would be very expensive. It would obviously be something we would lien the property on or could lien the property on should we decide to demolish it. It may be possible that we can engage, and I'll talk with city manager. I have an idea about a particular individual that has the expertise, and we may be able to engage him on a contract basis to take a look at that building and give an unofficial, unengineered opinion based on his thoughts and experience as a much less expensive kind of approach. Yeah, it's a bit tricky.
That's an excellent answer, and I'm really grateful for that. So we're looking for a motion, Mayor, on this situation. All motion to continue this and bring it back. Did you recommend 30 days, Mr. Hubler?
I would suggest at least a month. Yeah.
Do you think 60 days is better?
60 days may be better to give us time,
Okay,
particularly to address the one-on-one
I'll
situation.
Go ahead and make that motion. sir.
Second.
Very well. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Can we take a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D. Valdez,
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Very well. Thank you very much. We'll now go on to items proposed for council consideration, discussion, action items. We have before us consideration for approval of amended joint powers agreement between the city of Espanola and ReadyNet. Ms. Diane Hawkes.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. I'm here this evening respectfully requesting approval for consideration to amend the joint powers agreement between the city of Espanola and ReadyNet.
Motion to
Motion
approve?
to approve. Second.
We have a motion of approval from Councillor Manny Martinez along with a second from Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez. Questions for Ms. Hawkes? I think that the most relevant question is what are the distinctions and what are the new changes to this amendment?
Absolutely, Honorable Mayor. So this amendment would allow, number one, it would allow for the addition of officers to the ReadyNet board. It would also allow for the removal of NC NMEDD to have control over the board meetings and the minutes, if you will. It'll also remove NC NMEDD as their fiscal agent, as they are now fiscally sound to stand alone. And it also gives them a little more authority versus right now, the current structure, they have to go through NM do it and through DFA. So it will give them a little bit more authority as a governing body.
Very well. Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hawkes. So if you're removing the fiscal agent, who becomes a fiscal agent? They're going to handle their things themselves.
They have established, they had several years of unresolved audits and things of that nature. They have cleaned all that up and they are fiscally sound now, so they will be
To
their
take
own.
over themselves. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, very good. We have a motion for approval. And let's see, do we need a roll call vote? Let's take a roll call vote anyway, just in case.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D. Valdez,
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
All right, very well. Thank you, Ms. Hawkes. So now we'll go on to consideration of Mesero Investments, an action item to approve Mesero's one of the city's investment stewards, Ms. Jessica Ortiz.
Good evening, Mayor, Honorable Mayor, and members of the governing body. I apologize that I am not in person this evening, but I wanted to thank you for allowing us this time to present to you the Mesero financial information, the proposal for the investment. And I'm not too sure, Mr. City Manager, do we have Mr. Eric Lujan with us in the audience this evening?
Oh, yes, we do, Ms. Ortiz.
So I'd like to invite Mr. Eric Lujan on behalf of Mesero Financial to provide an update to the governing body. We have been in conversation with Mesero for a few months now and seeing what services they have to provide to the city in regards to investment opportunities, perhaps to, better yields, minimizing risk. And so with that, I will turn that over to Mr. Eric Lujan and his staff to introduce.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Mayor, Honorable City Councilors. Mesro was approached about a month and a half ago by the city manager, Mr. Javier Martinez, and he had contacted the Rio Arriba County, who we also manage a portfolio for. And we stayed in touch. We had several meetings here at City Hall discussing your investments, where they're currently at and where they're being held. And we did a portfolio analysis of where the city was at and where the finances were, and the basis points you're earning with your money just holding in a bank. Your portfolio was what we'd like to call not a very good shape. You're earning 1 to 3 basis points, which is basically nothing. And through COVID, you had very minimal, if any, gains at all in your portfolio. We at Mesro, a little background. We manage close to almost $100 million of taxpayer dollars in New Mexico, starting with our biggest client, Santa Fe County. And I'm joined this evening by the former county treasurer, current chief deputy treasurer, Mr. Patrick Varela. And also, of course, Commissioner Bustos from Rio Arriba County, who is also our client. And we have 2 Class A counties, Santa Fe and Doña Ana, as well as McKinley. And coming to a picture soon, Bernalillo County. We also look at small portions that we get from the PRA and the State Investment Council. We at Mesro, doing government investments, we take it to the point where it's taxpayers' dollars. So we're always yielding the side of safety. But as you'll hear this evening, our gains are, even through COVID, are looking at 30 to 40, sometimes at 50 basis points, depending on what the market's doing, how it's fluctuating, especially the bond market. And with the amount that we have suggested through the city of Espanola, we are looking at about, correct me if I'm wrong, Javier, about $2 million.
That is correct, Mr. Lujan.
And all the way from Chicago, I'd like to introduce, and he'll take it from here, my colleague, Mr. Jim Kilbane, who is the marketing director of Mesro Financial. And he can explain a lot more about the company. I just want to give you the background because I do manage these accounts here in New Mexico, so I know what we're doing and where we're going. And if you have any other questions, and both Commissioner Bustos and Treasurer Varela can explain their portfolio and why they do business with Mesro Financial. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Eric. Mayor Pro Tem, governing body, good to be with you all the way from Chicago. Where we certainly aren't having the summer that you all enjoy here weather-wise. It's been a little crazy. But we were able to join you via Zoom. The Finance Council met. We had an initial discussion and a preliminary presentation. And I really think, Mayor, the decision before the body today is simply whether or not you want to go to professional money management. Mesro has been a firm that's been around for 85 years. A couple of good things that I think are advantages about it. We're not owned by a bank. We're not owned by an insurance company. We're owned by the employees. So headquartered in Chicago, we have about let's hair under 500 employees, of which 200 of those own the company. And by the way, that's not getting stocks in Mesro. It is taking your checkbook, writing a check out, investing in it at Mesro, and hoping for a very good return on your investment. I've been fortunate to be a shareholder all of my 17 years at the firm, and it's been a very good spot to invest. But I think that's the decision, is moving into the realm of professional money management every single day on the city's behalf, as we do for the aforementioned counties. that the mayor mentioned. And I do want to thank Deputy Treasurer, past Treasurer Varela to be here tonight. Pat's been a very big supporter of a couple things. The job that we've done for Santa Fe County, number one, and number two, really, in essence, the job that we continue to do as we look to expand our footprint here in New Mexico. And that's really what we're doing. So I'm going to go through this book. I'm not going to go through every page, but I'm happy to have you stop and ask me questions throughout. A lot of folks don't know who Mesereau is. If you turn on the first page, page 3 there, as I mentioned, we're in Chicago. We're 100% employee owned. We are not the largest firm in the world or even in the country. We manage $206 billion, but what we manage in investment grade fixed income is only $5 billion of that 206. So we go against trillion-dollar firms, and again, they're very good competition. Fidelity and BlackRock. You might be familiar with some of the larger mutual fund companies. We don't certainly want to be the biggest. We want to obviously be the best and most consistent provider of return. We invest in what matters, certainly our clients, and I'll let you know how we go about doing that. Our communities. You'd be very proud of our employee base in terms of the number of volunteer hours that they put in certainly downtrodden neighborhoods in Chicago, and we certainly have plenty of those. If you turn the page, really what is the value proposition that we have on page 5? Mesereau Fixed Income, who we are. Strong team of professionals, average 30 years. That doesn't make us the best, but it makes us pretty experienced, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Our investments are focused on investment grade bonds. You might know the concept of what a junk bond is. We do not invest in risky assets on behalf of our clients. That's what has made our record consistently good, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then everybody on the team that I'm about to talk to are owner-operators of Mesereau, so they are shareholders in Mesereau Financial. One of the things that I would ask you to consider is the consistency of the investment results that we provide. And as Eric mentioned, this is, as we all know, historically low interest rate environment, and is really trying to get the proverbial blood from a turnip, trying to get return when there isn't return necessarily to be found in the market. We have, obviously, we're going to customize the portfolio. We have a copy of your guidelines and objectives. They tend to be similar, but not the same to the other elements. So we customize everything we do. We start at those guidelines and objectives. We move through them and we build a portfolio from there. And then lastly, I'd say, even though I'm in charge of asset gathering and marketing, the person that's responsible that this governing body keeps in touch with is the portfolio manager that is in the markets on behalf of the city of Espanola every day. So who are we really talking about? Our org chart is next. It's headed by Peter Hagel, who was actually on the call with the finance committee. Peter and I were, I think it was about a month ago that we had a nice chat with finance council. And then this is the team. It's not one person, it's not two people, it's not three people. This is a very institutional organizational chart that, these are the folks that are working on, that would be working if we're fortunate to gain your confidence on the city's behalf. So the benefits of the Mesereau team, not to sound redundant, is experience. We average 30, all senior members that manage the money. So it's team oriented, even though Peter Hagel, the head of our group, would be this governing board's contact. It is managed by 3 other very, very capable folks. We have a sector expertise. So everybody comes, one treasury, one corporate, one mortgage back, one municipal bonds. Everybody comes, we meet. We met weekly pre-COVID, and now we meet daily, 8 o'clock every morning, Chicago time, to talk through the markets, because we're not we're not quite officing together yet. We anticipate going back, Mesero tells us September the 7th, the Tuesday after Labor Day, and even then that will be an abbreviated schedule. But I talked about experience of the team, and I want to take you down to this histogram on the bottom. And I think almost everybody in the room, with all due respect, is old enough to remember a lot of these things that occurred over time. Look what this team's been through. Obviously, the early 80s recession, savings and loan crisis in the mid to late 80s, Black Monday, we'll never forget that. The dot-com bubble in 2001, certainly the Great Recession of 08, nobody will ever forget that. Energy bubble, and then clearly, as we're still experiencing COVID. This is a group that has seen a lot, hasn't seen everything, but it's been pretty close, and they've achieved some really, really terrific results. And if we go to the next page, let me set up this for you. We are the dark blue bar. That is our performance of our composite. And the benchmark that clients hold us to are to the right. We just went back for the purposes of tonight. Even though this track record goes back to 2005, we wanted to kind of keep it, not simple, but we wanted to keep it compact. So this goes back 10 years, this for periods ending June 30th, and that ITD is inception to date. So that takes the entirety of the track record into consideration. Look what we've done versus the benchmark. Even let's talk about the first 2 quarters. We're 36 basis points above the benchmark. And you heard Eric Lujan saying that the bank, again, no disrespect meant to competition, they have, they're a bank for a reason. We are an institutional professional money management. We earn for our clients 40 basis points in the second quarter. You guys were earning something in the low single digits for the assets of the city of Espanola. So we're very, very proud of this track record. And I think, one of the reasons, and I'm not going to speak for him, I never do, and I don't speak for our clients, but one of the reasons Pat is here tonight is, really to, address any questions, maybe particularly that you have for the Santa Fe County and the work that we've done. We're now over 5 years in managing that portfolio. That's what we refer to as a full market cycle. And we've done, we're not putting words in Pat's mouth, but we've done, I think, pretty good work in a very difficult environment. And that's because that's all we do every day. We don't, we're in the market on our clients' behalf. We only manage institutional money in our group. So we don't have high net worth wealthy family. We don't have, other kind of retail oriented things. All we do is institutional money management. And like I said, not the biggest at 5.2 billion combined, but this is a group that really has shown, I think, most recently here in 2020 and 2021, that they've really shown their ability to be able to generate yield. And if we go to the back, the appendix, I want to, and by the way, this is, if you go to the next page, outperformed the last 10 years. So over that period of time, we outperformed every year versus the benchmark. And that's what people hire us to do. Outperform the benchmark and do the very best job that we can in obtaining a higher yield. One last important point, and then I'll turn it back to you, Mayor. If you go to the GIPS report here, there, next one. There you go. When we first started coming into New Mexico, I can't walk in here and say, we're going to charge you guys something more than we're charging Santa Fe County or Rio Riva or Doñana or McKinley. So I'm walking in here, you can see our standard fee schedule on the first $10 million is 30 basis points, okay, or 0.3%. All the relationships we have in New Mexico, we do at 17.5 basis points, regardless of size. Pat and the Santa Fe, it's a north of nearly a $30 million portfolio. We're not coming in here penalizing you folks for saying, oh, it's only this or only that. We don't operate that way, okay? I put that in there, but that's our standard fee schedule. We have to put that up. It is, as the city attorney would know, I have to do that to let you know that, it's part of our ADV. It's part of our results oriented toward clients that are considering doing business. Well, what do you usually charge? That's the stated amount we charge. And again, if we're fortunate to invest $1 on behalf of the city, we would be charging 17.5 basis points. So, Mayor, I'm happy to wrap it up here in the interest of everybody's time. I know it's been a long night for you, but happy to take any questions.
Motion to approve, sir, for the sake of discussion.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. So for the sake of discussion, please don't feel like you need to rush through any of this. This is very informative and very important for
Yes.
folks to gather and grasp. So if I may, I just have a few questions to start off with.
Please.
When we say short-term strategy, what does that mean by your definition?
Right, it's exactly correct. The securities we buy do not go out longer than 5 years in nature. So we have a short term, we have a core portfolio, which goes out 1 to 10. And then we have a long-term portfolio that can invest in 1 to 20 years. So it's a very good question. We will not invest in securities that have a maturity date longer than 60 months.
Do you? Of course.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, please.
Mayor, councilors, when you're looking at that short-term aspect of things, we have to reflect back on your investment policy and how that governs us and how we invest through it. And that was a policy that was set up by myself, Treasurer Varela, your former city manager, and your former administration, and approved by this governing body. And that would allow us, that gives us our leadway. Where do you want to do this? How do we manage this? It's obviously not enough money to manage as a core account, as we do for Santa Fe or Doña Ana. But it does give us the leadway to say, okay, do we buy some 3-year step ups? And where is that going to gain us? So where are we going to sell? Where are the callables at? As Mayor, you know the investment world. You look at it and you say to yourself, okay, so we start here. And in the short term, where are we going to get from there? And what are we going to buy for you to allow that? So it basically what dictates to us is your policy, your investment policy. And it's pretty stringent and pretty much runs the guidelines of the state statute. So we're very limited as to where we put your money.
Do you deal with the overnight market, or is it shorter term, long-term assets?
Yes, no, we do not, Mayor. We do not do the overnight market. It just, as you can expect, it just doesn't pay, frankly. It just doesn't pay us to do that. And we want to keep the transaction cost on the portfolio as low as we can.
That sort of goes to my next question. Could you talk about tax strategy and policy that you guys implement?
Yeah, for you most particularly, and they're tough to get. So the thing that your portfolio was eligible for is a thing called taxable munis. And one of the more popular taxable munis is the state of New Mexico. So these are municipalities issuing revenue or bonds to raise cash. They have a very solid rating, and they usually have above government or treasury securities usually give us about 30 to 35 basis points higher. So we do everything we can. The problem with this is they just don't stick around. There's a lot of folks like us out there that also look at New Mexico paper as being attractive, or New Mexico-like paper. It's not the only state that we deal in, but as Pat would attest, and even former Deputy Treasurer Lujan, that we have a mandate from our New Mexico clients that anytime we see paper, again, in guidance with our objectives, that we're to buy it for the portfolio. And it's been a very good place for us to manage that.
Going forward, how do you see the fixed income market developing with regard to fears of inflation and with the amount of debt that's out there? What is the strategy going forward?
Yeah, the strategy going forward is ironically, it doesn't pay and Mayor Pat just asked us the question on Thursday about that very element. Does it pay for me to go out beyond 5 years? With rates that they are, we all see inflation creeping up, CPI, the CPI number, even though the Fed is saying we're going to keep it at 2%. It's not 2% right now. It's north of 2%. In fact, it's north of 5% for, on a year-to-date basis. But the Fed is not getting, the Fed is not going to be getting excited about it. They usually don't. Direct answer to your question, Mayor, is the fact that we're not going to extend your money out. Thus, the presentation to you all today on the short-term strategy. There isn't anything outside. We call it a yield curve, but there isn't anything beyond 5 years that we think that would be valuable for your portfolio that would add that much incremental yield. So our strategy is we're keeping it short because the yield curve. So therefore, buying 30-year bonds, it would be absolutely ridiculous. And the interest rate risk associated with that 30-year bond is a lot higher than the shorter bonds that we would be buying for the portfolio.
Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. I am interested in talking a little bit about risk, being that if we are investing the public's money.
Yes.
I myself have been interested in moving that money for a long time. I really felt like leaving it there was absolutely not smart. So I'm very interested in what you're talking about, but being that it is such a large amount of money and it's money that the city has worked hard to save on behalf of the public. And the money really doesn't belong to any of us. It belongs to the whole constituency. So I'm curious about the risk.
Yeah, great question, madam. Thank you for that. And I think Eric touched on it with the fact that the first thing we recognize is most particularly with the counties and the cities, it's taxpayer dollars, hard-earned dollars. And also you have a budget to contend with as well. And those budgets, don't have a lot of incremental revenue that's going to impact it. So what we say is we're not going to invest in anything that, first of all, is not commensurate with your guidelines objectives. But this portfolio that I showed you, the composite with the bar graphs, that's an A+ rated portfolio. So if you go back, one more, right? No, right there, right? No, below that page. Perfect. Oh, there you go. Keep going. The next one.
One more.
Next one. There you go. Sorry about that.
One more.
One more. So see, if you take a look at grading, you can see we have nothing below investment grade. Now remember, triple B, that's investment grade. Anything below triple B is non-investment grade or junk bonds. Okay, but the average credit quality of the portfolio and the results I showed you is A+ here. Okay, the benchmark's quality is a little better at AA+, but we felt getting into bonds that were less than AA+ helped certainly performance.
So mostly A+ bonds and moving down to A at some 34.6% and triple B is at 29%.
That's correct. And what that tells you, madam, is you can see what doesn't pay here.
The lower level.
The AA's, right? The AA's, and certainly the double B's and the single B's, the index is not going to ever invest in those because this is a high quality portfolio. Okay, but take a look at nearly 25% in AAA of this portfolio, and then 35, let's call it 35% single A. That's where we think the edge is. And what I mean by edge is that's where the team thinks the best incremental impact on performance and yield to your dollars that you entrust us with is at. And you'll always be able to tell the risk by looking at those two measures right there, the average credit quality, or the average quality right there, and then the yield to maturity. So think about it. We're already winning. Our portfolio is already winning versus the benchmark by an increment of 34 basis points.
Okay, so that was my next question.
Yes.
What's the duration of this investment?
Right. So this is a composite. So it's made up of a lot of different clients, but with very similar objectives. The duration is 2.37 years. And that goes to the mayor's question about where we think interest rates are headed and how is it going to be impacted? Because remember, bonds have a reverse relationship with inflation.
Right.
More inflation, the less your bonds are worth. Where are we going out? We're going out under that 3-year category and finding some good value.
Okay, so then the last question that I have.
Yes.
Deals with something that Eric mentioned. He mentioned that city manager had reached out to him in an effort to invest some money. And I'm just curious if we reached out to any other companies or we just reached out to this company. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Great
sir.
questions. Much
Thank you.
obliged. I can't answer that one.
No.
The truth is,
Yes.
the
and
city
I-
manager reached out to Rio Arriba County, and then they referred us to the city.
But
And that's
Right, and honorable mayor, members of the governing body, so this would be considered professional services. So it is within our means to go with this in regards to, and not going to RFP or to bid.
So you didn't reach out to any other company?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Councillor Justin Salazar Torres, go ahead. And then after that, we'll go to Commissioner Bustos and then Councillor Denise Benavides.
Thank you, Mayor. Are we strictly speaking domestic bonds or foreign?
Yeah, we do not do any foreign bonds.
Mayor,
foreign bonds.
Councillor Salazar Torres, it's against federal law for any government entities, county, city to invest outside of
Right.
the United
Right.
States.
Okay, great. As well as my next question is, how often is the municipality updated on our assets, whether it be growth or losses? When do you all come forward and let us know what our standing is?
It's a good question, Mayor, Councillor Salazar Torres. We've agreed with the city manager and your finance staff on a monthly basis, I believe, to report to you. You want a monthly report, right?
And then
That's correct,
As it
Mr.
is done in Rio
Mr.
Arriba
Lujan. So
County.
we'd like to start off on a monthly to see how it goes, and based on how the growth, we can maybe do it on a quarterly basis and to report on maybe the finance board, but definitely with the finance committee.
Right, and follow up, one more question, Mayor, if you'll indulge me, is being that this is taxpayer money, what is our starting dollar amount that we are investing or starting with?
We'll be starting with $2 million.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Bustos, please.
Hi, Mayor, Commissioners, good evening. I just wanted to let you know a little bit of what we're going through at Rio Arriba County. As you know, I'm only 6 months in, so I'm learning everything as we go along. And this was one of the things that I was very interested in. So just recently, actually, we had a meeting with our treasurer. Now, at Rio Arriba County, the 3 commissioners also act as the Board of Finance. I don't know if it's the same with you guys.
Yes.
So, and again, as Councilor Martinez says, you know, I'm very careful about our money because it's not our money. It's our constituents' money and it's the money we use to run the county. It's not my money. And one of the things I was concerned about is we have actually quite a bit of money sitting in a savings account, basically, that's not earning us very much money at all. And it's just not, you know, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the people to do what we think is best. So my questions were many of the ones you've asked tonight. First of all, is the money safe? We don't want to lose any money because again, it's not ours. So we have actually quite a bit of money in a bank, getting CDs, that kind of things. Well, again, they're not earning much of anything. Another question that we went over to is, okay, what if we need the money? Can we get it out of the investments?
And I talked to them about that. And actually, it just depends on what you want. They can invest in stuff that you can pull it out if you need to pretty quickly. Because that was a question. Because as with all public entities, there's so much money we have to keep safe. We have to keep a certain amount for the state. We have to keep certain amounts that for matching bond money, all that other kind of good stuff. This year now we're getting that American Rescue money too, that some of it will be used this year, some of it will be used next year. So we have to take all that into account. So that's what we've been looking at. So in terms of Meseroff, they've done very well for us. And the other question Councilor Martinez had is, have we looked into other ones? When we started the investment process with Meseroff, we actually picked two companies. We picked Meseroff and another company, and we put 2 million in each to see how they would perform. They actually perform similar, but Meseroff did beat the other company. And we have had no complaints, and that's basically what I just wanted to let you guys know about what ours is going in. And we're going to be having a Board of Finance meeting now in August with the treasurer giving us recommendations on how we can maybe better move a little bit of the money over, so it will get us a little bit more interest, because I'm sure you're in the same boat we are, in that our general fund is always to the penny. It's, it's tight. So that was another question too, that you might want to ask yourselves. So you're going to be making interest on this. Are you going to be reinvesting the interest, or are you going to be using it for the general fund? So anyway, those are just my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilor Denise Benavides.
Thank you, Mayor. I first want to start by apologizing to the Mesero team for not being there in person, and to Deputy Treasurer Varela, and thank you for being there tonight. We did have a great discussion during the finance meeting, but prior to that, I was looking for solutions to invest some of the city's money. It's been a long time that we've been earning very little, and I know that we talked about solutions to be able to make additional money for our constituents and for the city. One of the things that happened actually is in conversation with Deputy Treasurer Varela. He mentioned to me this company and then introduced me to Mr. Lujan. We then had a lunch meeting with City Manager and Director Ortiz, who had already previously been speaking to this company. In addition to that, one of the reasons that I wanted to have this company, or to select this company, is because they do manage other municipalities and have that experience, which I think is very important to us. And in addition to that, Deputy Treasurer Varela is there tonight, and he can talk to you about some of the investments that Santa Fe County has had and how well they have done, in addition to Commissioner Bustos, who we just heard from. So I think that moving forward, I think 2 million is a great start. I know it's constituents' money. I think we need to not be afraid to make these investments that will assist our community going forward. And with that, I would like to invite Deputy Treasurer Varela just to speak to us just for a brief moment as to, his kind of dealings with this company. I know they've been dealing with this company for quite some time, and just to kind of ease any concerns that any of my fellow councilors may be having tonight. If he would indulge us.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilor Benavides. So I first came aware of Mesero through a GFOA conference back in 2013. What attracted to me was what he mentioned, company owned. I was just doing trading at the moment, so there was no commissions. So that really attracted me to the company. So I started out small. I gave them the core portfolio, not bragging on money or anything, but I put aside 25 million and let them do it and see what they came out with. They performed very, very well. And I know Councilor Martinez, you had a question on safety. These are fixed income. So fixed income, if you probably know, but fixed incomes are the second safest investment you can get. The first being treasuries, of course. The fixed incomes are backed by an act of Congress. So if something would happen, like if it's a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Federal Farm Credit and such, they're backed by Congress. So if they would ever fail, you would get that money back. You'd be made solvent. But practically, mostly in practice, municipalities are buy and hold. They do a practice where they buy them, they buy $1 million, and then they get the $1 million. And in that duration of time, you get that interest that is promised to you. So you either ladder it out or whatever you want. So basically, you're the boss of Mesro at that time. So if you desire brokered CDs and fixed income in your portfolio, you're the boss. You pretty much tell them, we'll invest this for us and see how it turns out. The other benefit you have you're in disposal with them at any time. I can call them up and say, what do you think the interest rates are going to do now with inflation almost at 6%, and with the Treasury, the 10-year Treasury, which is a benchmark, falling now. I think today it closed like almost at 124, 126. So it keeps on going down. So what does that mean? What are we going to do in that time? So I can pick up the phone at any time and call them and ask them these questions. The other thing, I also teach investment classes to a lot of the municipalities, the county. I always tell people, if there's a bank paying you 2 basis points and the opportunity to make 10, 20, and you don't take that opportunity, you're actually doing a disservice to your constituents by not taking
Absolutely.
advantage of that.
Absolutely.
So they always, excuse me. So I'm always looking for the best thing for Santa Fe County. And as many of you know, Santa Fe County borders within Espanola. So we've made pretty much a great deal of money in the past 10 years since I've been around. So, and with them, I always tell them to reinvest it, or if there's opportunities to sell it for more money. Like there was a time last month, I sold an iBird. It's a different type of, it's a sovereign type of a security. It's backed by Congress also. When I looked at the price of it, the going price at that time, it was going at instead of $100, it was selling for $109. On Monday, when I went into work, it was selling for $112. So I sold that security, making almost $250,000 additional profit above the 4.4 million that I had done. So in the amount of time, which was only 2 years left on that security, I got a net of like 200,000 additional dollars. So there's something that they can always do too. So you don't always have to buy and hold, but again, you're the boss. You can say, no, we just want to buy and hold, or no, if there's an opportunity to sell the securities, sell them at a profit. So that's they're at your disposal. You're the boss of them. You can ask any question at any time.
I appreciate you sharing that information. Thank you.
Sure. Is there any?
Yes,
Stephanie?
Councilor Justin Salazar Torres has a question.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. This is a consideration, obviously, to be basically in partnership with Mesro. My question is there a commitment time that we are allotted to? Can we back out at any moment? What are the restrictions regarding that? Are there any penalties, et cetera?
Yeah, a great question. Depending on the outcome of tonight, I send you an investment management agreement that will, in all likelihood, should be reviewed by the city attorney. That gives either party the ability to be able to terminate the other within a 90-day period of time, clearly without penalty. So we looked at that. So that's one full quarter, right? And within that period of time, we would ask 45 days notice within that 90 days. So yeah, but no penalties for termination. In essence, both sides have a potential in essence on the other.
And follow up, sir, should we have our legal department go through this first prior to anything before approving this consideration? What would your recommendation be, Mr. Nahum?
Thank you, Councilor Salazar Torres, Honorable Mayor, Governing Body. No, I think the proper course is first to approve it and then work on negotiating the terms.
Councilor Benavides, I apologize. I see you have your hand up.
That's okay. Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things that I think are important that Deputy Treasurer Varela mentioned. Number one is I think that we definitely, especially the Finance Committee, need to take advantage of those investment courses or classes that Deputy Treasurer Varela could teach us. I think that would be extremely important for us. And the second piece is that there is a bit of management, I think, that would be the responsibility of the city as well. In that. So I think it's really important for us to take advantage of this training that he could offer us, because in that training, I think we'd be able to do some management of our own of the portfolio.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just want to thank you, gentlemen, and Commissioner Bustos for coming and doing this presentation and taking your time to come out and present this. I think it's very important that we look at investing in our future. We've talked about it. We know that there's a lot of areas that we need to move forward in the city. And I think we need to start looking at our investment for the future. And I think this is a great start. And I thank you, sir, for sharing all this with us, because I think this is the way that we need to move. We have a fire chief that's going to come every meeting wanting more firemen. And we need to, I know I've told them, well, we need to see how we're going to find that money. And I think this is a great start. So thank you.
All right. Do we have any other councillor comments or questions? Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez, go ahead.
Thank you. So talked about a 90-day cancellation by either party. I'm just curious, if the city had a dire emergency, there would be an availability of us being able to liquidate, correct?
I think it's a very important question, but I want to make sure I understand it. Are you asking that if you needed to?
If we needed the money for some dire emergency.
Okay, yeah, that is absolutely completely different than a termination clause. I think, as you heard from Pat, the securities that we have. So let's just say you started out with $2 million and then, God forbid, something would happen and you needed that $2 million back. We would liquidate it and get it to you with what they call T+3, which is trading plus 3 days, which is the normal settlement procedure within the financial markets.
Okay,
But that's
great.
different than termination.
Right.
We would ask you to come back. We would give you the money, but we'd ask you to keep the agreement in place. So great question.
Thank you so much.
All right, very well. I think we've gone through all of the councillors for questions. So we have a motion from Councillor Justin Salazar Torres and a second from Councillor John Ritchie. Can we take a roll call vote, please, on the approval?
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D.D. Valdez,
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Very well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming.
Mayor, councilors, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
You have a great staff, Mayor, really good to work with.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I asked that you put a little fireman on your desk and see how many you can add to that.
Very good.
Our goal.
Very good.
Thank you.
I will bring that back to Chicago. We will see you all again soon. Thank you.
All right, very well. So we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is Resolution 2021-35, adopting the Affordable Housing Plan. We have a presentation from Councillor Denise Benavides.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't know I was going to do a presentation tonight, but okay, great. I actually have not seen until recently the final version. I did see it sometime back, and I think that the staff did an absolutely amazing job. I did have questions for Director Hoover back then, and did have concerns that the housing plan was made out to both Rio Arriba County and City of Espanola. I had concerns that it would affect our funding. But since then, I know that there are ways and things that can be done to handle when we apply for certain types of grants or things like that. So I no longer have that concern. I do have one question. I see Mr. Hoover there, thankfully. Again, excellent job. I don't know if everyone had a chance to take a look at it. I think it's well written. I think it's beautiful. I think they did a great job. Just a quick question. I know that when it got done and it took some time to bring it forward, a lot of the information now is, I don't want to say outdated, but in a sense, yes. The 2019 information is out there now. 2020 portion of that information is out. The rest will be out in September, I believe, although the housing assessment is out currently. Is there going to be an update to the plan soon? And will that be done with the current company, or will we incur additional cost going forward? Just a couple questions. Other than that, again, kudos. I think it's really well written. It's beautiful, and I commend you.
All right, Mr. Hubler, please go ahead with the presentation. We'll
Thank
save
Mr.
you.
Mayor. Councilor Benavides. So yeah, this is, as Councilor Benavides said, this has been a long process coming. So for those of you that may not be aware, the city and county actually have a street housing strategic plan that was initially written about 2015. It was adopted by the county in 2016. It was not adopted by us until much later, unfortunately. We do have an ordinance that goes along with that. Those two things are required basically under NMFA regulations and state statute for us to do a variety of things. That included more affordable housing development. So this plan was basically the 5-year update. They're generally good for 5 years. The last one we had was supposed to be through, was the 2014 to 2019 plan. This one is the 2020 to 2025 plan. And kind of like we come before this body with, or the finance department comes before this body with the sales that were paid in March and the GRTs in April, and then we don't see it until May, et cetera, all these months behind. We've got a very similar situation with a lot of the data. This plan mirrors a lot of the same themes from the one 5 years ago. The data hasn't shifted a lot. Our county is losing people. The city's staying fairly stable, right around 10,000 population or so. We're seeing a little bit of development, but it's very slow. On average, 1 to 2 site-built homes a year. Substantially more mobile home placements, manufactured home placements. So those themes have kind of persisted, and that data was, the 2018, 2017, 2019 data. That's all good. The next time this plan will be updated is approximately 5 years from now. That'll take into account the more full, complete data we'll get from the 2020 census that they're still working the numbers on. And then, of course, the ongoing data that's accumulated by the ACS, or the American Community Survey. So this plan does address a variety of kind of the issues that we deal with in developing housing in the Valley. Like I said, it's a joint effort because these issues don't stop at our city limits. That's slightly different, way north up by Tierra Maria or the far reaches of Rio Arriba County than it is around the city. But as everyone is familiar, a lot of the kind of development, particularly the affordable housing development, happens in or around the city limits. And so we did partner with Rio Arriba County a couple of years ago to fund this plan, to hire Site Southwest. And actually, Ms. Phyllis Taylor, one of the principals and one of the authors of this report, is here with us if you have specific questions. It's like Councilor Benavides says, it's a lot of information. It's really great. We worked with her to get everything polished last year. The plan was accepted in its draft form by the MFA. They'd also given us a grant, as you may recall, for about $30,000 to pay for this. And then the city and county split the other $10,000 or so. So it's ready to be adopted by this body. That keeps us in compliance moving forward, so that if we have housing development, hopefully coming, then we'll be able to, and have all of our boxes checked, be able to basically do the kinds of things we need to make that happen, whether it be low-income housing tax credits or other projects.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mayor stepped away for a little bit, so just Councilor Justin Salazar Torres has made a motion. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez has seconded. Discussion, councilors.
Follow up, if I may. Mayor Pro
Yes,
Tem.
go ahead, Councilor Benavides.
I just wanted to let my fellow councilors know that in the 2020 housing assessment that was recently put out, there was some information in there that stated that quite uniquely, Rio Arriba County actually grew a little more than Santa Fe County. There was actually an article in there that specifically mentioned Espanola and Los Alamos National Labs, in stating that Rio Arriba County, City of Espanola, has a unique opportunity if we could provide housing, not just affordable, but housing in general, to assist not only with, as we all know, some of the employees that LANL is bringing on board, in addition to some of the ones that currently live in our area and are unable to find housing and are renting. So the article did specifically target Espanola. It was a great article and did mention how the city is growing, and it did mention how we have a huge opportunity that hopefully we won't miss out on. But this plan allows us the opportunity to move forward, not only with grants, but with a lot of different things, in that if we do proceed with some sort of housing, and I would like to see mixed, of course, use, not just affordable market rate in addition to some affordable, but I would like to see us go a little bit further in our definition and what the city will do to require any developers that come into our community that wish to develop in not forcing them, but in a sense, yes, to provide a certain amount of affordable housing within their developments or to pay some sort of fee in lieu if they choose not to provide that affordable housing. That gives our community an opportunity for additional income that we at some point could create a housing fund to not only assist with our public safety, but to assist in additional housing going forward in the future. So again, I think that this is a long time coming and it's desperately needed. And I think after this, we move forward with speaking to some developers that are truly interested in coming to our community and taking advantage of those employees coming in from Lano. They're scheduled to hire yet another, I don't know how many thousands, and they all need somewhere to live. And I'd rather see them in a home than in an RV. So great opportunity for us.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hubler, do we have any developers at the moment that are looking at Espanola developing any of the areas? I know that there's some property owners that have had the property for sale for some time and just seeing if there's actually any bites out there for developers.
There's one project partly underway at the McCurdy Ministries campus, what used to be McCurdy School. It's still in the preliminary stages. Our offices had conversations with a handful of other folks about a variety of different properties around town. As of yet, even including the McCurdy one, we haven't received any formal applications for housing development. But to Councilor Benavidez's point, one of the things that this process involved a working group, it involved a bunch of meetings. Phyllis and her team did an amazing job right before COVID hit, getting everything organized. And then COVID, of course, threw us for a big loop. But one of the things that was very apparent was, what kinds of housing do you need? And the answer was really yes. We need affordable housing, we need market rate housing, we need workforce housing, we need everything in the middle. And so our office has been exploring any of those opportunities with folks that are interested. But as of this point in time, there's nothing currently that's in the approval stage or approval process.
Thank you.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. That's what my question was leading into, the market rate housing. This plan does address affordable housing and having the opportunity for families of lower income to be able to live in our community. Absolutely, that's part of it. We definitely want that at some extent, but I don't want Espanola to become a low income housing area. I don't want to be identified like that. I really believe that Espanola is really beautiful, and I think that it's a beautiful place to raise your children. But I also believe that we need new housing opportunities for families to consider. She's raising her hand, so I'm going to yield to her and then I'll follow up. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, and that's a very excellent point. Absolutely. And I'll let Phyllis address that.
Honorable Mayor, Councilors, my name is Phyllis Taylor. I'm a principal with Site Southwest, and we're the firm that put the information together. I want you to notice that the title, even though this document serves the function for the Mortgage Finance Authority as an affordable housing plan, we called it the Housing Strategic Plan, and it includes not just affordable housing, but there's information in here about the needs for housing at all price levels. So I think it will be helpful to you when you're talking to developers to show them that demand. And we had done similar work for Los Alamos County. So we were aware of the fact that they have a very difficult time housing all of the people that they need to hire there. We also know that for a lot of their employees, a pretty good percentage actually, Espanola and Rio Arriba County is the preferred place for them to live. I mean, you have a lot of advantages in the kind of beauty of this valley and the ability to own some place and have land. So that's all in here. I did want to address also the questions about the census. We did this a year ago and it was approved, and then we've refined quite a bit since then, especially in the strategies for you moving forward in this version. And we had 2018 information. There's now 2019. And for key information, we did update to 2019, especially looking at income information, because for whatever reason, and I don't know what that was, the 2018 information was not available. So the original document had 2017 as kind of the default back, but we've updated all of that to 2019. So as best we could with the American Community Survey, which is what provides us the detail, we have updated the key information. I will say for a lot of it, the change was not very much, but for income, we did do the updates.
Thank you. So that was one of the questions that I had. And then the other comment that I had was that Espanola is very rare in regards to Santa Fe or Los Alamos, and that there are large parcels available in this community to develop still. And that's a very special thing because that's availability of being able to develop new housing and stuff like that. So the next question that I have deals with something that you touched on, Mr. Hubler, concerning the tax credits or possible federal money coming down the line. So could you address that a little bit, please?
What kind of information are you looking for?
So I'm just wondering if the city legally can start looking at developers and offering up incentives like infrastructure help or development help of any kind legally.
Yes, we can. And one of the things that we're required to do to be able to do that is to have both this plan and then the corresponding ordinance. And so the city is set up there so that we can work with an existing developer. The city had actually spoken with the Santa Fe Civic Housing Trust last year, and they'd submitted an application for a low-income housing tax credit project that unfortunately wasn't selected. They were about 5th out of 10, and they picked the top 3. We expect that we're going to have, more opportunities to go after those kinds of developments moving forward. We think in my office, certainly, that there's a lot of opportunities for public-private partnerships, one of them being the Silky Way land that the city's in the process of purchasing. And as well as properties that we own down around the plaza. And that could be a mix of residential and commercial spaces. It could be, some blocks of residential up where the pool used to be and some commercial down on the Hunter site. So there's a variety of resources that the city does have. And that was, you guys will remember, that was one of the things that led to our recommendation for a housing person to help coordinate these kinds of efforts, because we certainly have a lot of opportunities to do stuff like that.
Final comment, Mr. Hubler, thank you for you and your staff and all your hard work concerning this initiative, and also to Ms. Taylor and for her entity. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other? Councilor Benavides, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to also just mention to councilors that this is definitely one of the biggest steps and a first step. It's difficult currently today for developers to build affordable housing because of the cost of materials. And so one of the things that Director Hubler and I had discussed, and Allison Gillette when she was still with us, was inclusionary zoning. So it's important for us to not only, and I know Chief Padilla needs firefighters, but we desperately are in need of an economic development / housing person. That's the only way that we can also move forward with developments in our community, especially those that are going to be affordable. There is currently opportunity out there for 4% and 9%, mainly 4% tax credits. City of Santa Fe is in process of applying for a 4% tax credit currently. The majority of that money is utilized by other counties other than ours. So I think it's time for us to hire the expertise so that we can get in the game to be able to move us forward. The other thing that I'll just mention quickly, and I want to thank, I think her name was Phyllis, for updating, what she could. I know that I'm currently working and put the LOI out for Santa Fe County's affordable housing plan, but we utilized Harvard University for 2019 information. We also hired UNM Business and Research Group, and there was a lot of information out there for 2019. And the reason that I'm adamant about having more updated information in our plan is the more updated information we have, the more opportunities that will come our way. So again, this is the first step, but there's much more work to be done.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Justin Salazar Torres.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Just to follow up with Councilor Benavides' statement, that position that she spoke about was included in our budget, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Very well. Do we have any other councilor comments or questions? All right, so we have a motion of approval from Counselor Justin Salazar Torres with a second from Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez. Can we take a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
I'm so happy. In favor.
Counselor Dorothy Didi Valdez,
In favor.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Very well, we'll now move on to letter L, Resolution 2021-34. A resolution approving a budget adjustment request in the amount of $37,232, increasing in revenues and expenditures to purchase and install commercial kitchen equipment at the Beatrice Martinez Senior Center in Espanola in Rio Arriba County. Ms. Diane Hawkes.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. I'm here respectfully requesting approval of Resolution 2021-34. This resolution will give us a budget adjustment to increase revenues and expenditures in the amount of $37,232. And this will give us budget authority for an award that the Senior Center received from Aging and Long-Term Services. So every year, Aging and Long-Term Services puts out a funding cycle where centers can apply for funding. However, it is capital outlay money, and the centers are limited to requesting equipment over a $10,000 threshold. This particular award allows the center to purchase anything 10,000 and under.
Motion to approve, sir?
Second.
We have a motion for approval from Counselor Manny Martinez with a second from Counselor Justin Salazar Torres. Do you have any counselor comments or questions?
Just one question. What's the timeline, sir?
Uh,
And
Counselor
will they
Martinez?
be shut down during the changeover?
For this award? No, and it's actually to purchase things like utensils, things that they can't normally purchase with any other grant, so it shouldn't impair any kind of operations.
All right, thank you.
Very well. Do we have any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
For the motion.
Counselor Dorothy Didi Valdez,
In favor.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Also in favor?
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins.
So now before we go on to the last item on our agenda, two things. One of them is today's discussion will be extremely limited, as I mentioned before. I'd like each counselor to perhaps just give a very brief question, if they have any, that we can perhaps address at the next joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission. That is the first thing. And the second comment that I wanted to make is more of a thank you very much to Mr. Hubler for all of the work that you've done for the city of Espanola. We are very saddened to see you leave, and no one is affected more than perhaps this body. We've many times said, thank you very much for helping to clean up the city. We've said, thank you very much for helping us to move forward. And most of the time we've failed in our ability to sometimes do the same. So we just want to say thank you very much for all the work that you've done.
Thank you all very much. And one of the reasons I did want this to be on the agenda this evening is because I think this is something important for the city. And it's one of the projects that, that our office took on, and I just didn't feel, as you could see with all the other items, I didn't feel comfortable leaving the city with things undone. There's certainly still a lot of things that are in progress, of course. But this is one that I do feel needs to be moved forward. We initially brought this to the Planning and Zoning Commission for discussion in June, and then we brought back these proposed regulations for a consideration at the last meeting with some particular language changes. As you guys are probably all aware, and this is the preface to my my thing. This was the July 1st issue of the Albuquerque paper, apparently their independent newspaper. Recreational cannabis is here. So that's going to impact the city. in ways that we probably can't predict. There's certainly ways that we can take advantage of, and that was kind of my hopes in drafting these regulations. As far as the timeline goes, the state basically as of July 1st decriminalized the possession of cannabis and cannabis products. They now have two versions of cannabis. It's basically called adult use and medical. They're now all housed under the RLD, the Regulation and Licensing Department. They have a new cannabis control division. All the Department of Health staff moved over to that. So they're undergoing their own changes, but they had a very aggressive timeline set by the legislature. The state is supposed to is required to start taking applications for the first type of licenses, which is the growers licenses or producers licenses, September 1st. That's why this is very time sensitive. And I wanted to make sure that I brought this to you guys, particularly to answer any detailed questions you might have. There's three basic formats that we're going to see cannabis-based businesses in the city limits. The first one, obviously, growing. That one's relatively straightforward. It does, and this all relates to the business side. The Cannabis Control Act or the Cannabis Regulation Act does now allow for personal growth and consumption. There's a per person limit and a per household limit that the city has no authority to impact at all. We can impact everything above and beyond that. So there's a variety of different license types that the state has designated, micro businesses, large producers. They're still working out the details of that. The draft legislation actually closed out the comment period June 30th. They went through public hearings. They're making some changes. They've got another one coming up here in August. And again, those will have to be set by September 1st. They're also putting out all the draft regulations for all the other license types. And the state is doing a really good job of kind of considering everything they possibly can based on all the experience of surrounding states, based on the capacities of the state, and more than anything, based on the guidance from the governor down, that this is something that they want to be successful in New Mexico. It's not a recognition that, it's something they have to do. It's literally something the governor said, she wants this to be the new green chili and green cannabis for the state of New Mexico. And the various departments are very much taking that to heart. The conference that I went to June 30th and July 1st was all about the business. We had regulators, we had industry folks, a lot of good information, and that's what kind of created some of the specifics for the proposed rules. These were then reviewed by our department's attorney at New Mexico Local Government Law to make sure that we are in compliance. So of those three types, growers, we're going to be able to set some rules about the time, manner, and place of growing. We're going to have to consider rules around manufacture or processing. This includes everything from, kind of the cook it into brownies, kitchen-based food type service, to one of the folks that I met at the conference with a company called Bloom, makes a cannabis extractive. We're using liquid methanol at minus 70 degrees Celsius. So absolutely high-end, manufacturing process. We're probably not likely to see those folks come here. It's a little bit far from their primary markets, which are the kind of El Paso and Albuquerque areas. But we're probably going to have some folks that are going to want to do something other than just bake magic brownies. And then the third and final component we've already got, and that's the recreational sales. We have that currently in the form of our medical dispensaries. There's presently 3 in town. There was a 4th, but they went out of business. It's expected that all 3 of those are going to apply for the licenses to be a recreational and adult cannabis dispensary as well. We've also got a number of other folks in town that are going to probably go after that too. The overarching guideline of the state and the way that New Mexico is dealing with cannabis slightly different than everybody else is about equity and opportunity. So they are not limiting at the state level in any way the number of licenses that get issued. It is purely a process. You turn in everything that's required. They review it, make sure it meets all the requirements. They give you the license. It's not competitive in that regard. So that means that we're going to see a lot of folks, especially in and around here, who see this as a potential opportunity. And so we need to have something on the books basically to handle that. So the short version of what we'd proposed was that recreational sales, just like our existing medical sales, should happen along our main corridors, our main commercial strips, the B1 and B2. There's a little bit of B3 down by the plaza here. That's what people are going to want to do anyways. That's where it makes sense to have a business. And in that way, it's not going to be a predominantly different impact than the existing medical dispensaries. or than any other retail store. You're gonna have vehicle traffic, truck traffic, it's gonna be open business hours, et cetera. The manufacturing and processing, we recommend it be limited if it's a light processing without noxious chemicals, be limited to that same area, because again, this is similar in some ways to automobile paint and body repair shops. They've got vent hoods, booths, filtration systems, again, similar kind of impact on the neighborhood, and we think that's appropriate. If it's high end, like that Bloom company with their minus 70 degrees explosive extractive fuels, that needs to be in an industrial area. The really tricky part that we get into is where we get into the growing, and that's where a lot of the language changes in here that you see. The city had started tackling the agriculture, as I mentioned earlier, back in 2019, in order to make things cleaner for this particular language change. My recommendation is that we take everything that's in our code right now that's broken about livestock and just get rid of it. If we want to bring it back in the future, we can, but that way it takes it off and it doesn't make that part of this conversation at all. Cannabis isn't going to have any impact on livestock or anything like that. We're just going to get rid of all the rules we have on the books related to livestock and deal just with the agricultural piece. And that's why that section of the code had a whole lot of strike through, because that's actually in there now and we're proposing to take it out. But that's going to be one of the things, and I know that it came up at the commission that they would like to see some guidance from this body. And so I'm hoping that that happens during the process when you have the joint meeting, because that's the purpose of that. Unlike the regular things that I bring before this body from the Planning and Zoning Commission, where we have particular cases, this is a legislative matter. It's not quasi-judicial. You're not sitting in judgment of particular property owners. You're determining laws for the whole of the city. So that allows for and should encourage some substantive kind of conversation and discussion before you get to the version that you're going to vote on. And because the Planning and Zoning Commission is tasked with that version, the idea behind the joint session is to talk through all the issues, help them write the version that they need to recommend to you for a vote, hopefully before the end of the month. So that kind of concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Councillor Justin Salazar Torres.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Honorable Mayor, I'm a little curious how we can approach this. I know you guys want to have a joint session and so forth with planning and zoning and the committee itself there. But I know there's some gentlemen here that do have questions and so forth regarding this. So we're going to wait till then for them to ask their questions, or how can we better help them feel at ease walking away from this? I just want to make sure that they're taken care of.
I think that's an excellent point. And what I wanted to do was raise these questions so that we can potentially get answers to them for the next meeting. So if there are specific questions, please understand we may not answer them, but that way we can have those answers for you for the next meeting. So gentlemen, is there somebody that would like to speak on your behalf with any particular questions?
At this point, we came really unprepared to give a
Okay.
any type of
Very good.
question, but when it gets to the point of possible ordinances further on, we'd like to have some input as far as the acequia organizations and the ranching interests and livestock interests here in the county and the city. We'd like to be part of that process.
Okay, very well. And I think what we're trying to do is also make it clear what we're doing. So in many instances, it seems as if whatever language we have for agriculture with regard to cannabis is completely separate from anything that we would discuss with livestock.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, in respect to these gentlemen, I just want to make sure that all answers were asked and we have some sort of clarity.
Very good.
And to that point, if I could just make a comment, it was a recommendation at the Planning and Zoning Commission that this proposed changes be sent to the Santa Cruz Irrigation District for distribution to the acequias, so they could participate as this moves forward through the process.
Councillor John Ritchie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just, because some people have, when we say we took all the livestock regulations off the books, so technically, it's we're not saying you got to get rid, you just continue on, but we're not saying where it can be or it can't be with livestock.
That's correct. The current regulations on the books specify that livestock, cattle, goats, swine, chickens, et cetera, are only allowed within the R1 and the R2 zone districts. So the proposal was to fix that, but that's a different issue and a little bit of a complicated one. So My proposal as part of this legislation was just to literally strike all the livestock rules out of the books. So there's no rules or regulations related to livestock. Anybody can do whatever they want with livestock until we do something different with a different ordinance in the future.
So it's a free for all.
It's already a free for all. We haven't been enforcing it for half a decade
Yeah.
at least. Yeah.
But in sense, yeah, we're not coming after your chickens or your cows.
We're officially,
stay put.
we're officially okaying your chickens and cows until the point in the future when this body might enact an ordinance to regulate those.
That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Counselor Manny Martinez.
Thank you. On the questions of chicken and cows, it may not necessarily be the person that has the chicken or cows, but the neighbor that's going to complain as how come they can have chicken and cows right next to my house. How is that going to be addressed if we don't have any type of ordinance in place?
Yep,
Period of
understood.
time.
And again, my answer would just be the same thing that I just commented to Councilor Ritchie is that for my review, we have not enforced any regulations around chickens and cows for at least half a decade and probably a lot longer. So right now, we're not doing anything about the crows, or the crowing roosters or the bleeding sheep in your neighbor's yard anyways. So this doesn't really change that. It just takes it out of the equation for the language for the cannabis.
Okay, on a follow-up, if I may.
Of course.
On the cannabis, you mentioned areas to grow. Would that be according to the ordinance that we're looking at or that you're looking at putting together? Would it be allowed in any area to grow, or would there be certain areas that would be allowed to grow? Again, we're talking about neighborhoods that might not be prone to it and might complain about it, or is this going to be just, again, open to any place too?
So it's important that we identify that cannabis is one of several agricultural products. And so this proposed ordinance actually addresses agriculture in general. Because when we start to specify particular things, cannabis is now totally legal in the state of Mexico, same as your tomatoes or your alfalfa or your chili. So we have to say, what is the issue that we're going to have as a city with an operation? If somebody's got a small garden in their backyard for their family, no issue. Nobody's going to complain about that. If they put, 4 out of their 5 acres under a greenhouse with fans, et cetera, your neighbor's probably going to have an issue no matter what's inside the greenhouse. So what we had actually proposed was kind of 3 different scales, so identifying kind of home-based gardens, identifying community-based gardens, and identifying commercial-based gardens. And those commercial agriculture endeavors, regardless of the product, would go through the same kind of review that a commercial business would go through, so that we can consider particular things and impacts to the neighbors like traffic, parking, utility connections, adequate water. Some of these things have very particulars under the cannabis stuff. Cannabis rules are going to require that they provide proof of water. So when they come to the planning commission for review of their farm, if it's a cannabis farm, then they need a couple extra things than if it's just a big 5-acre chili farm. But the idea is that we're not treating it different by the product, we're treating it by the scale.
If I may, thank you. As far as, of course, growing and distribution, 2 different things, are both have to get licensed, I'm assuming?
Yes.
And what if a person is growing and distributing from their home?
So what you're allowed to do under the Cannabis Regulation Act is grow a certain number of plants per person and per household. You're allowed to possess a certain amount of product. You are not allowed to transfer, sell anything else with that product for anything that's not personal use without a license. So there's 7 or 8 different license types. It includes everything from growers to couriers to manufacturers to, everybody in between. So any kind of commercial activity at all of cannabis is going to be regulated by the Cannabis Control Act, and anything that violates that act is still a violation of the law. It's 2 ounces or so of cannabis you can have on you at a time. If you don't have a courier license, but you've got 5 pounds in the trunk, it's still a crime.
And just to follow up on the acequias, I know that the acequias manage the water system as far as telling the pacientes whether they are allowed to water or when they can water. In some cases, they will even say, only if you have a garden will they be allowed to even manage their water when it comes to the cannabis as far as the district itself? when it
So
comes to cannabis?
this will not override any of the existing statutory or process stuff that the acequias have. Now, it's my expectation that because we have a lot of irrigable farmland in the valley and a lot of it has not been utilized, and partly that's because it's a lot of work and maybe you sell hay at $5 or $8 a bale and it just doesn't make it worth it. I think that we're probably going to see a lot of those lands become valuable now because this is a cash crop that can make some good money. And so we're probably going to have increased interest in water rights and acequia use from those landowners because now it makes sense for them to put money into the soil.
Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez.
You've covered a lot of the concerns that I had, Councilor Martinez, so thank you, Mr. Hubler. The only questions that I have left are one for our attorney concerning how does all of this livestock situation sort of mesh with the cannabis situation? And is it possible for the city to tackle the cannabis situation and leave the rest of that alone?
So we could absolutely leave the livestock on the books.
Yeah.
As I said, because we're not enforcing it, it's kind of pointless. So the proposal was to amend the existing language. And so in your package, you'll see the bold is the items, the language that I proposed to be added. The strike through is the language that will be deleted. This is how we've amended other ordinances to take out sections that don't make sense. One of the things in here is actually a section not so much in land use, but a chapter on adult entertainment, the one that also covers psychics, interestingly, not allowed in the city either. But that also outlaws the carrying basically of cannabis. So that one obviously we got to strike. So there's a couple things that are not land use related, that are cannabis related that we'll address. But my proposal was to just strike out everything related to livestock and bring that back as a separate ordinance at a different time.
I really think that there's a fear in our community that because of the dealing with this, there's a fear of what possibly could come on the backside of this. Like you're saying, like when you decide to engage on the livestock, then what is the city gonna do? I feel like if we're not really enforcing it right now, then I really feel like they feel a little bit safer with that. And even though it's maybe not the way that it should be, because if it's on the books, we should enforce it. But I really believe that there's a lot of concern about that. And the other thing I want to say is it possible that when we do have the Planning and Zoning Commission and the governing body meeting, that we would be invite the acequias and to sit at the table so that they also have a voice in this, because I feel like they're very, very invested in the situation. And I really feel like it would be important for them to have a voice.
I totally agree. And that I think was the reason that, the commission had requested that we engage with the Santa Cruz Irrigation District. Yeah, to make sure that we incorporate their feedback as we move forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Justin Salazar Torres.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Within this, will this affect any of the farmers' irrigation rights or any access to that? Because I guess now this is focused just on cannabis, right? And in the sense, well, whether producing, irrigating, et cetera, will this affect them in any which way? On the backside of things.
The proposed language does not address that. What's going to be the biggest impact, I think, to the community, whether it be livestock or whether it be water rights, is going to be the potential that this changes the use of land, right? Again, the
use of
fallow
what, I'm sorry?
use of land.
Okay.
So land that's lied fallow, land that's maybe growing alfalfa now. I suspect we're probably going to see a number of those pieces of land come into production of cannabis. Beyond the homescape. I mean, like, again, everybody's going to have their 6 or 12 plants or whatever, but I'm talking about, there's a license that they're doing, which the current proposal allows up to 100 or 200 plants. I forget exactly which. So it's a small scale micro business kind of approach. And that license would allow somebody to kind of do the whole integrated thing. So they could grow it, manufacture it, sell it, et cetera. And I think we're going to probably have a number of individuals in the valley and in the city that want to take advantage of that license, because that's something that you could easily do on half an acre.
Sure. And to follow up, Mayor. So when we do have this discussion, joint meeting, et cetera, is there something we can put in place? Because I can see as a free for all, whether it be with the ranching side of things of this and so forth, that I guess both parties feel protected in some sense. Because when something's a free-for-all, then I feel that individuals might think that more restrictions are coming to them, or something a little bit tighter that will come and affect them in the wrong way, right? If that makes sense.
So I think that, I mean, and again, this is just my proposal. The governing body and the planning commission can do whatever they want with it. I think that there's no better way to protect the livestock, because we're a historically agricultural community, you know, both for growing plants and for growing animals. And I don't think that there's any better way to protect the interests of those folks that are doing either of those than clear rules. And so we propose those specifically, you know, prompted by the need for them for cannabis on the growing plant side. I think until we get to the time and the effort that it's going to take to get those through on the livestock side, what I had proposed, just as a reference, was that we take it out of zoning and that we just do it based on lot size. And we talk about animal density per acre or an equivalent. And so I proposed some numbers based on that. And that's where it got kind of hung up last time around. So that may be a good approach to take. It may be the approach that this governing body and the next director want to take. I don't know. But I think until we as a city figure out what that is, I think there's nothing better that we can do than to remove any kind of prohibitions on livestock now. Because like I said, if at any point in time somebody says, oh, we need to enforce this, you know, it's on the books. You can't have chickens. You can't have cows on railroad. That's stupid. You know, I mean, that's where we've got great agricultural land for cattle on railroad, but it doesn't meet the books, right? So let's take it off the books now so that it's not an issue.
Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you. I don't know if we'd want to bring also any representatives of Northern New Mexico College to something like this, because they did start a program where they are actually, I'm not sure if it's a degree program or if it's certification, but for growing a cannabis.
Yeah, it is. They've got a certification program going. Yeah.
All right, very well. Thank you very much for the discussion. Councilor Benavides, I'm sorry, I can't see you through the digital world. Do you have your hand up?
I do not, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, you got it. I think that's about it, right?
Thank you.
Very well. Mr. Huber, once again, thank you so much for your service to the city of Espanola. We've reached the end of our agenda. I hereby call this meeting adjourned.